Just testing to see if this microphone works. There's nobody in the chat. I'm here all alone. I don't mind. I was trying to listen to that guy on Dago's show. And yeah, I can't hear it. Let's see here. What do we got? Oh, I'm waiting. Anyway, so we'll leave this up for a few minutes just to see if the mic works. Or I would, one watching now started streaming less than a minute ago. Yeah. So if there's someone in here, I don't know that that's not my appearance in the room that it's counting. That's probably what it is. But I need to see if this new mic works. If it's loud enough, if it's not, just some idea as to whether this mic works. And I guess a quick topic on can opposites both be true was kind of the way I labeled this for Idaho4. Yeah. So someone's out in that chat room. Can you hear me? Hello, hello, hello. How does it sound, Becky? Is it loud enough? Is it clear enough? Let's see here. We got 6 people in there now. How's this microphone working before we get into any discussion and topic on Idaho4? Some feedback would be wonderful. Sounds good. Sounds clear and perfect. Well, just so all of you know, I've had some pretty expensive microphones, professional looking, heavy duty, made with stainless steel. I've got one like, what's her name over there? She's in Dago's stream right now, the Bronx Tales. I got the exact microphone she had. That thing's junk. So I've had many moderately to highly expensive microphones. And this one I paid $7.99 for, brand new. $7.99, so that we understand, not $799. I bought the cheapest mic I could find because I've gone through, in 4 years, I've gone through 5 expensive microphones. And I'm just burnt out on it. And I don't want to play with warranties and jerk. It's like, Jesus. You know, you got to send them back. Some idiot will plug it in and say, it sounds good to me. I don't even want to get into the discussion about a warranty. All right, so I'm glad. We're back. Is it loud enough? Should it be louder? Should I turn it down? Any opinions on that? Loud enough, 1, turn it down, 2. What do y'all have to say about that? Some of you, I don't know if any of you were watching that, what's his name, Carlos and Dago stream? Everybody's saying 1. All right, good. So, yeah, I was trying to listen to the guy, Carlos, the guilter, and I think he's just intentionally trying to be contrary. Because I suspect if you change the script and said, if that was your son that was accused of these homicides, and the information released thus far, would you condemn your son to death? Would you accept that evidence is sufficient to place your son in front of a firing squad? And I don't think Carlos would have any desire to say yes. Thank you there, 2-channel fan. And I think that's the difference between a lot of us and a lot of those people that want to scream guilty, guilty, guilty. And again, I don't know that he's not guilty, but I do know that the case brought against him is it's so deficient in fact, and they admit to the public that they have no evidence on this guy, except what they claim to be transfer DNA that was fiddle fucked by the FBI. And then used in databases they had no business going in, and then hidden, right? Then they tried to hide it. Good morning there, Mark and Betty. So if this was you personally or one of your children, and the evidence that's been issued and the arguments that have been made, like that guy was saying, well, you know, Brian drove around until the time was right, and there may have been 5 cars, but the lights were out. Well, that's not true. That house was completely lit. None of the people in the home were sleeping. That's the other real problem with this whole conundrum of one guy doing this. Nobody was asleep. Nobody was asleep. And that makes the crime fairly unique. That's why for the longest time they lied to the public. When you get the media involved and you create a narrative, and the media starts pumping your narrative, worldwide, you tell a lie often enough, it becomes the truth by default, because that's the only data people have. Folks like you and me that see how inefficient and how deficient the information is, don't get a voice. We just called right off the bat, you're a conspiracy theorist. And I don't take any shame in being a conspiracy theorist. I mean, there's some conspiracies that I just absolutely out of the box object to. I don't think Bigfoot is real. I don't think people from other planets are coming here, from other solar systems. No, I just don't think that. I think the evidence that they've presented to us is as deficient as the evidence they've given to us about Brian being the sole perpetrator. Yeah, all these, I don't like, I did listen to that interview on Birdie's thing because, like I said, Birdie has got some kind of professional background in entertainment of some sort. And you could see that in the way he titles everything. Like, I don't suspect my titles are, can opposites both be true? I'm not trying to say they saw who killed Ethan. That was something like his title. What kind of a title is that? It's bullshit. It makes you think that someone other than Dylan saw Ethan or saw the guy in black, and that's not true. It was never true, but his titling of his stream draws you in because it proposes something that's not true, and he knows that when he makes that. And I just won't do that to people. You could label it all you want, but all of these streamers are doing it, and I'm sorry, I just don't have any interest in that. If you don't want to talk about common sense, and you don't want to not like mislead me to come in, like you see that in politics all the time. You see that in all of these streamers with their and what makes them any different than the news media when you get right down to it? Why are you doing that? I know it's about money. I get it. I get it. And money is not the root of all evil. People are. Money is just some fucking fabric designed, currency. That's all it is. Yeah, you need it to live. And I've got plenty. Maybe that's the difference between myself and many streamers out there. But I'm sure many streamers are very successful and have plenty of money themselves. I think my advice to the streamers that have plenty of money, my advice to them is very simple. Be smart, live below your means, and make sure that you have no debt. That's my advice to anybody that has a job or anybody in the entertainment business specifically. Don't have debt. Don't leave yourself hanging because you got a $4,000 a month mortgage and you're out here on YouTube with this nonsense and true crime or politics or whatever. Because very few people can do the long-term duration of what it takes. Think about that. A 30-year mortgage? Come on. Be smarter than that. No matter how much clickbait you post, just be smarter than that. Look, I'm not personally attacking anybody. I'm just suggesting that and I'm not trying to like, I had a real problem with that guy, Tommy Jude. And I don't like Bubbly Waters at all for the things that she does. I just don't. Because there is what I call an underclass of viewers. It was like that in politics too. And they'll run with the craziest shit. Because that's the way they view the world. And I just don't want to associate with people like that. I don't want to be looking at reflections off the fucking moon to try to come to some understanding of what's happening on the ground. Fuck that. If I got to do that, man, oh man, I'll drown myself in my own fucking pool. I try to be practical, I suspect. and it's not as entertaining as my titles aren't that entertaining. I don't think the streams are necessarily as entertaining, but I'm not trying to make an entertainment to earn your trust and money. I mean, maybe that's the biggest difference. Yeah, when I got other people, it's easier for me to be a little bit more silly and a little bit more entertaining when there's other people to bounce off from. Like when I had what's his name in here, Cletus. Remember Cletus? That's when I started this channel with Cletus, whom I haven't talked to in a while. Yeah, and in the end, yeah, it's not. Look, I'm not trying to put anybody down or suggest anything other than the truth. The truth of the matter is, his title today led the viewer or the potential viewer to think that woman was going to say something that either she or someone else had seen this person in that mask. And that's not, it was Dylan. She was repeating what Dylan told her. I mean, but we already know what Dylan saw. I don't know. I didn't think the girl's interview was that much importance. I mean, it is what it is. We all knew there's nothing in that interview that was revealing to me. What I did was after I I knew when I clicked on his stream that that's what I was going to hear. I knew it was all going to come down to Dylan. And yet the way he worded the title, it misled people to the conception that it may be somebody else. Whatever. I mean, I clicked in just to confirm my view of what I see a lot of the streamers do. And it's not a matter that I need to be right all the time, although I do enjoy that. Cletus. Yeah. That's really not his name. That's my nickname for him. My nickname made him famous. But that's why I say in this title, can opposites both be true? And in some cases, I think that is accurate. I watched an interview today with Chris Whitcomb, and I got to say to you folks that based on his explanation of himself and his life's experiences, he is quite an individual. I mean, I've gone through a lot in life, but a lot of it was self-fucking created because of addiction, or but anyway, that guy's got a hell of a life, a hell of a past, a hell of an education that's completely unrelated to the actual career he ended up in. And make no mistake, I think he said something today that resonated with me, and that's probably why I made this title. Can opposites be both be true? And I think I should have got the link. I'm so bad with organization. I trust my mind to remember things. That's the real catch-22. That's why you don't see links and pictures and pages and videos. And I trust what I pay attention to be recalled, and it's served me well my entire life. But I guess as a streamer, if I want to be more entertaining, I can mix a little bit of Lana in, a little bit of Birdie in, a little bit of whatever in, and I probably could make a good go at it. But fortunately for you, the viewer, I'm just not going to do that. I have no fucking interest in doing that. And kudos to those that do, because a great deal of you are highly entertained by it. And to each their own. Yep, Cletus was the wingman. So he made a point today to remind me about how a system works and why you could say one thing, even though the course of this investigation didn't go in a direction that we can agree that the case was presented to us in a very mucked up fucking way. But here's what he said, and I think there's something that we should all consider so that maybe we may see and understand. And here's what he said. He said, you've got to remember that the police investigate. Then that information is given to a prosecutor or a district attorney or an attorney general, but anyways, the police collect the information and they don't decide what gets done with it. And that distinction is important because now when you hear some of the comments they make about the investigation, you have to divide the investigation into what the investigation is. The police go and they review the crime scene and they collect information that is then given to the prosecutor's office. Now, did they make mistakes in their collection? I'm sure they did. But the concept of who the target of the investigation is and what evidence that you're going to use to form this investigation is decided by a prosecutor, not by the police themselves. And that distinction, I think, is important. Then it's given to the defense attorney and it's presented to a judge or court of law, and ultimately it's brought to a jury. So I think it's one of those coincidences that are a little effed up there, Mark and Betty, when it comes to Brent Kopacka being in Pennsylvania. But Brent Kopacka was quite a bit older than Brian, and Brent Kopacka lived a life of completely devoid of anybody like Brian Koberger, right? The fat, nerdy kid that was involved with drugs and blah, 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 blah. You know, I mean, Brent Kopacka, I don't know. There's nothing that makes, other than the fact that he was, I think, swatted. I think that's what happened with Brent Kopacka. Was his termination because he was connected to this case? I don't think so. I mean, they could have ended this whole thing right away. If you think that through, right? Let's say Brent Kopacka was their primary suspect and that Brent Kopacka was the killer. When they shot and killed Brent Kopacka, they could have put this to bed right then and there. They could have laid it all at his feet. Fair enough. They didn't have to go through his hoorah with Brian Koberger. They just didn't. Again, though, it may be also that Brent Kopacka was terminated, and Brent Kopacka and Brian Koberger were the perpetrators. There's also that potential, right? Remember what they said. We're looking for the person or persons in a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra, not as suspects, but because they were in the area and they may have seen something that would help the investigation. Right? So originally, the white car, let's not forget, the white Elantra 11 to 13 was being sought because of person or persons. Okay? So, you know, so can opposites both be true? I think in some situations that is accurate, that can be factual, both can be true. Both can be opposite in the conclusion. And I think that in this particular case, there's a whole bunch of that. You know, like I said, I tried to listen to Carlos. He's a very nice guy, but that doesn't give him the excuse to give leeway to the prosecution and law enforcement. Right? You see, that's what I mean. He gives, and that a lot of people, I don't know, and I don't want to get into politics, but a lot of people will tend to believe a government or the officials before they'll question them, and unless it's something extraordinarily flagrant, and even in cases where it is, man, people go along with the government narrative. It's what's sold to them over and over and over again. You know, I don't know, but this is transfer DNA. You have hard blood evidence in the crime scene that you never investigated for identification, and that may be considered a miscarriage of justice. You focused on one man, yet you found multiple male DNAs in the crime scene with items that would naturally be considered connected to that crime scene. Backpacks, one outside, glove with blood on it, right? Handrail with blood on it that was different from anybody in the home. Different There's so many different sources of information that was not pursued. And that's what they call prosecutorial discretion. But prosecutorial discretion can also be a violation. They also knew what to test and what not to straight away. Yeah, but again, that's in the possession of the prosecutor to decide. That's why my summary of what I think happened there that night is something much bigger than anything that we've not even conceptualized what happened there. We know the murders happened and Brian's the guy. That narrative, there's something wrong with that narrative in big ways. And I think that narrative is hiding a truth extremely effectively. And I don't know what that truth is. But that narrative also allowed, and like I said the other day, this I've already seen where somebody's true crime forensic shows are now talking about transfer DNA to lead them to a suspect, and the IgG to identify him. And I don't think that should be part of law enforcement. The fact that you lose 5 billion skin cells a day, microscopically, every single one of us looks like Pigpen from Charlie Brown when we're walking around. I think that stuff needs to be handled with extreme care. I'm not saying it's not relevant, but I think there needs to be significant fucking guidelines and rules that are adhered to. And when violated, any information derived from that process needs to be excluded. Yeah, I'm very, very happy that Turvey showed us what happened to that knife sheath. There's no images of it on the floor. The image and even the mention of it, I think, didn't come forward for a couple of days. It gets moved around and sent to labs with no chain of custody. That should be excluded. And any finding that came from the knife sheath should be, even if Brian's blood was on it, that should have been excluded. Because the handling of the evidence was just not proper. The guessing that a car was involved. I mean, I don't get it. I don't see why a vehicle has to be involved in that crime. Also, the violence of the crime, the ability to move through the home, and many other pieces of information indicate someone familiar with not just the property, but the people and comfortable enough to be in a home while it's lit. Think about that one, folks. So, well, they did find DNA in his Elantra. It was blood under the seat that belonged to Brian. I mean, so Brian cleaned his car and he's just cleaned it just good enough to miss one spot. Are you serious? Right? So everything is so contrary to the result that they keep jamming down your throat that Brian's the sole perpetrator of this crime. All the evidence that they handpicked and pushed isn't even evidence. It's evidence of nothing. A lot of people are now waking up, and I can't tell you how many times I've said the PCA was exculpatory to the defendant. There's nothing in the PCA that's inculpatory. Not a single thing. You could talk about all the phone pings you want. You could talk about phone pings until your fucking brain falls out your asshole. Not a single phone ping can place Brian Koberger at that home. I don't give a fuck how many times he was around the home. That's just stupid. To accept that as evidence of his presence just makes you an empty-headed idiot. Well, he was out there more than 23 times. Well, I don't give a fuck if he was there every day, 3 times a day for 8 months. Ask him why he was there. He's the only one that can answer that question, right? The whole PCA is exculpatory. Most importantly, because 2 things that make it completely exculpatory. A, they tracked the wrong vehicle. That's one. That in and of itself is just a bombshell, right? And I don't even use words like that, but just think about that. Yeah, he wrapped himself in a shower curtain. He ran around like the Cape fucking Crusader with a kill kit. Here, Zaina. Maddie, I'm sorry. Katie, can you hold this bag while I sort through and decide which weapon I'm going to use to end your lives. Maddie, hold on to this K-bar. I'm gonna smash your face in. Hold on a minute. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with people? How do they suspect the guy carries a kill kit into a house? First, it was just a K-bar. Do you know why it has to be a kill kit? This is the lie behind the kill kit. Because multiple weapons were used. That's why the kill kit is now part of the fucking talk online. There's no kill kit. I mean, what was the kill kit? The knapsack with beer in it? That's more indicative. And there were two of them. There was one outside and one in the fucking common area. That's more indicative of the people that were there in the home. We're familiar with the home, partied in the home, brought beer to the home. Right? It's just shocking to me. I forget. I think that couple that was on Dago's stream, and I think they're very nice people. No, I don't want to disparage them in any way, but I don't think he's looking at the information and what they call Lady Justice's balance of fairness. There's just none of that. He accepts that Brian stalked that house, but no matter how many times you say Brian was in that area, I don't give a fuck how many times he was there. In that area, he wasn't in the house. Okay, that shouldn't even be just. It shouldn't even be part of the narrative. That shouldn't even be part of the fucking story. That should have been stopped immediately. On longitude number 170. Yeah, that shouldn't be part. Neither should the car going around the fucking parking lot. That's been excluded. It's been excluded to the point of ridiculousness, right? Hey there, Squirrel. Brian's car can't be involved when you even want to argue he had a month to clean it. Yeah, well, how come he missed the spot? How come he missed his own blood? And there were Band-Aids and other things in that vehicle. How is that? Well, he wrapped himself. The guy tonight on Dago's stream said, well, he took his clothes off and put them in a bag. He must have removed them so that they were inside out. But okay, I don't understand how you got to twist everything. Thanks, there. I just got a new $7.99 microphone, USB. But he'll do the contortionist dance. A lot of these guilters to substantiate their belief, but belief isn't based on fact. Belief has got nothing to do with fact. Belief is without fact, just so you understand. That's why I keep telling people belief is to be used only in religious or spiritual areas where there can never be proof. You see? I can't prove that there's a God, but I believe that there is, right? But you're not supposed to do that with data, not man's data. That's the most ridiculous thing you could do with the data provided to you by human beings. Listen, not to say some of our data isn't correct. I'm not saying that. I'm saying Elon Musk's rocket flies on correct information. But there's no belief in that process. I'm not saying I have faith that I go out to my car and it's going to fucking start. No, that's not an act of faith. That's a repetitive behavior that has dynamic results that you've experienced every single time you've turned the key. How many times have you interacted with God? Fucking none. That's where belief belongs. Not with starting your car. Not with Elon's rocket. Not with a car driving around the house. I'm so sad. I'm upset, but I'm more sad than I am upset. I know you probably can't tell that from my voice. That we've all been twisted onto this idea that you believe things. Fuck no. Fuck no. There's no faith in starting your car. There's no faith in anything you do in your life other than what you do faithfully to the being or beings or lack thereof in this universe. That's it. You do that on faith. Right? I'm honest all the time. Am I a religious person? No. But I'm faithfully honest, right? Why do I do it? It makes my life better. Does that mean I worship a God? Doesn't mean that at all. But I take on faith the fact that being honest is going to be the best way to do things. Has it not caused me grief? No, I can't say that. I can't say that at all. Right? Whoever was in that car was either delivering something, trying to pick somebody up, okay, or hoping to buy some kind of drug. Something, right? There was a reason for that car to be in that neighborhood. A reason we'll never know. But back to what I was saying, the entire PCA is exculpatory. For 2 hours, the phone was powered off. How does that extrapolate to him being in that house? Well, it doesn't. How do we know it doesn't? Because Bill Thompson told us it didn't. Bill Thompson told us that there was no information, no evidence that connects Brian to the home of the victims. That should really bother the people that think Kohberger's guilty. So this guy is guilty, and you have no evidence to prove it, but you just know he's guilty because you said he's guilty. Really? Can I use that reasoning to go get a fucking $1 million loan? How about a $10 loan? Will that work with these people that think he did it? They believe he did it without thinking about it. They don't want to think about it. They just believe it. And this goes for so many things in our society, right? And there's an infinite amount of reasons a vehicle would do what it was doing there. Infinite amount of reasons. One of them could be they killed those 4 people. But the crime scene excludes a stranger. The crime scene excludes somebody's first kill. It really does. Do you really think the first drug deal I ever made was with like 50 fucking kilos? Do you think the first drug deal I ever made was a significant fucking quantity of cocaine? Okay? Or do you think I started out selling little bags of weed? I mean, what the fuck, man? His first attack is on 4 fucking strong, youthful adults in their prime. And he killed 3 of them with a subclavian and subclavian vein strike from the top down. And he hacked these people to pieces. Right? And yet he leaves the crime scene. He doesn't leave any drops of blood on the floor. Come on, man. I don't get it. He removes his clothes and there isn't blood splatter coming off the clothes you're removing. I dare somebody to just let me spray you down with fucking water. And now I want you to take them clothes off and put them in a bag and not get any drops of water anywhere but inside the bag. Come on. You can't do it. It's like almost a physical impossibility. If not impossible, improbable to the extreme. How do you hack people that much and walk out of that property without dropping blood? How? Well, I think what you do is you wipe up behind you. You wipe up what's the most obvious. That would be the floors. Did they rip the floors up and look under the floors? To the best of our knowledge, no, they did not do that. Nor did the defense team. Why weren't those pergo floors removed? Why weren't they? I don't give a fuck about taking drywall off. The blood is obvious there. Sure, go ahead, cut it up. I don't give a fuck. But what about the floors? See, there you go. See, common sense is thrown out the window when you allow belief to enter into your brain. Humanity doesn't deserve your belief. The data crossing these fucking internet wires, these TV communication fucking channels, don't deserve your belief at all. They just don't. And that belief is the danger here. Look, I don't know, Mark and Betty. I can't answer. I don't even know how they got his name. I can suppose many different ways. But I'll tell you what, I agree with Cy Ray when he says they didn't plan on framing this guy. They didn't plan on framing this guy. This isn't something that they set him up. I agree with that. But I also suspect that once they found somebody from out of town, right? That once they found somebody with a car from out of town, which they knew the minute they started checking their databases for cars. I honestly suspect that Brian Kohlberger became a suspect because he stood out as an outsider, right? Yeah, I really have a problem with Cy Ray. He's talking about no footprints. Well, I can accept that there's no footprints or shoe prints, but then there's one by Dylan's door. And that needs to be explained completely without any ambiguity what that footprint, how it got to be, who put it there. We now know that the shoe that made the print was found in the house. Was there any other blood on that shoe? Who did the shoe belong to? I suspect it belonged to Dylan. That's what I said in the very beginning. The location of that shoe print. And here's the other catch. The amino black that they used to find the shoe print was in Dylan's room. It wasn't in the kitchen. It wasn't in the common area. It wasn't in the hallway. They didn't hose the whole hallway down. And yet, no, I don't think the FBI did. I think the shoe did belong to Dylan Mortensen. That footprint had nothing to do with the crime. That's another lie in the PCA. Dylan stating that she saw a man in black that looked at her, made eye contact, and left heading towards through the kitchen. That footprint was used to substantiate her statement. And that footprint can't substantiate that observation. In that situation, then that woman's statement needs to be discounted and she needed to be brought in. Her room needed to be dissected. Her fingernails needed to be, she needed to be treated like the killer. So did Hunter. So did Bethany. And that's an opinion of mine. But like the most obvious thing that I don't understand, man. I just don't get it. That's why I have a real tough time with, even though we understand the police investigate, the prosecutor pick which way you're going to go and what you're going to do, and then they present that stuff to a jury and a court. Even with that, I still struggle with Chris and with Cy Ray's statement. The police did a great job. Okay. Right? A bathroom downstairs. Wasn't there, am I wrong to say that there was a footprint or there was something on the base of that tub they took a picture of? Right? That's correct there, Becky. Yeah, that's where this is where I think the idea of Brian Kohlberger being innocent or guilty needs to be ignored, and the focus needs to be placed on Bill Thompson and his investigative leaders, because they're the ones that picked and chose which way to go with this. And in spite of the fact, let's give them that the DNA belongs to Brian Kohlberger. Fair enough. Okay. But then to shut down any more questions as to whether others were involved when all the evidence says that there were others involved. And this isn't me like guessing. The multiple identifications of male blood DNA, right, is enough to tell you that it wasn't one guy. Yeah, no, we all know that there's a proper way for crime scenes to be investigated, and that just wasn't the case. And like I was saying, the gentleman that was on Dago's channel there, I mean, if this were your son and they're using microscopic DNA on your child when the entire crime scene was walked in by how many, a dozen or more people? Countless fucking people. Unprotected and ill-equipped to search for microscopic evidence that they themselves are shedding with every movement they make. Right? See, Hunter should have been detained. Bethany, Dylan, they should have all been separated. Anybody on that property at that moment should have been separated and questioned as suspects. Their alibi should have been separated from them and questioned. All of this. Anybody on that property that had a significant other The significant other needed to be questioned in a completely different location. There needed to be a script followed by the police, and that script should have been consistent across all potential suspects and or even people that made observations, people that were near there. And that's just how you should do that. They didn't do it. Nothing they did in this case conforms with any kind of common sense policy. Well, she also that one girl referred to it as a she, but I just accepted that as a misstatement about the perpetrator being a she. Although I accept that just in the flow of the conversation. That last girl that was just released, she mentions Dylan told her that she saw some something to the effect she was in all black or something. It was kind of a thing. Yeah, I don't really pay attention to the G family. I think that they're look at they're in a weird situation. Not only are they now suing, but the basis for suing them is the investigation they used to get Brian Koberger put in jail. They can't disagree with it if they want any money. They can't disagree with it if they want any money. I mean, what a quagmire they're in. And I tell you, I know for a fact, there's no doubt in my mind that Steve Gonzalez and his wife, who doesn't want to see anything contrary, and that's going to be based on the fact that they're suing for money. But the idea that they don't see these discrepancies in the investigation is nonsense. They're not going to come out and talk about it. They're not going to admit it because they want to get paid. And that to me is just, that's just so dark. That money is that important to them. It's just so dark. I know you lost your daughter. However, I don't know. I guess you trade a life for money through no fault of your own, right? The university's going to settle. You guarantee your ass it's going to settle. Right? And that'll keep the conclaves not only with money, but it'll shut them up. They're not going to be able to question the narrative at that point. So that's going to settle because it locks it down, shuts them the fuck up. Their story that Brian did it, Brian was the sole guy, and Brian drove, and Brian, that's all they're ever going to be able to say, because that's going to be what happens when they get paid. They can't go back on their word now. And the truth to them, I don't think is important, to be honest with you. Their daughter's dead. These people fucked the entire investigation up, but it's all we got, and so we're going to sue. And I guess it's a cynical way to view it. But there is no way that they don't understand the chaos that's going on here. Yeah, you're never going to get a trial. Never. The only potential trial you're going to get is against the state of Idaho. Brian Koberger versus the state of Idaho. Not Brian Koberger as a murderer. The minute he pled guilty to that, based on what they said, double jeopardy would apply. And if he sues and shows that they lied, they did this, they did that, then it's over. And I admit that's exactly what I said in the beginning. Dago can confirm this, and so can others that were in his stream 3 years ago. I said that right in the beginning. I took a lot of hate comments from people, and unfortunately, some of the people that were watching Dago got on. They canceled their membership and subscription because of what I said. And I didn't mean to harm Dago, but fuck that. I hope this guy did do it, and this investigation is such a pile of shit that's what's going to release the guy. And America needs to see that. I don't know what he's going to do. And I don't know. I haven't looked at the laws and stuff, but your rights under the Constitution aren't limited by an Idaho timeline. I just want to throw that out there. And there are people out here that are smarter than me. There's no doubt about it. And they're streamers, believe it or not. So, they're saying he's got 42 days to appeal by September 3rd. But this would be an appeal to I don't think it would be. I think it would be on the federal level. That's what I think. And I don't think that there's a time limit on that. Right? So I think there's a couple of appeals he can make, but I think the one where Hunter versus that new one the Supreme Court just ruled on, Hunter v. something, that I think is going to be the appellate angle that would go to the feds. It wouldn't stick with the state. Again, I could be inaccurate in this, but I'm pretty confident that that's how that would work, because that would be a violation of his. That would mean the state overruled or ran over his constitutional protection from the state, which is what the Constitution does. It protects you from government. It isn't government telling you you have, okay, you got permission, you can have free speech. It's not what it is at all. It's a fucking brick wall between government and your freedom. And your freedom dictates things that governments are knowing around the globe to not respect. I mean, look what they're doing in England right now. They're arresting people for Facebook posts. They're trying to do it here, and they just did it to a girl in Texas. Some small town in Texas. But she won. She got it, and she's suing. But that's what the Constitution is, to protect you from a fucking government-run wild. And that's something else, too. Like, I was in here talking the other night about how great and exceptional this country is. That's one of the mechanisms. But in all fairness and truth, we've yet to live under the exact promises of that document. We're still struggling and fighting for that. This case is one of them. Right. The Richard Allen case is another. The people that screwed up the Go-Go case, I don't know how that's going to turn out. But there is a whole bunch of different legal cases that have been brought to light. Look at all the rulings where people have got, and Ethan was the naked man in the house. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Come on, Moonbreaker. Come on now. You think he took down his girlfriend and someone took care of Ethan? Then how do you explain the two girls upstairs? I don't know why we can't see any of these things. I don't know. And they're trying to protect their narrative, right? I mean, this is a conviction by narrative. This is a conviction because the judge gave the state the power to stick this guy in front of a firing squad if based on what we were seeing. When they denied all of these motions, when the judge called Cy Ray a conspiracy theorist, when the judge said your alternative perpetrators don't have a white car, right? DNA is DNA every day of the week, including Sunday. That bias from the court is just beyond understanding. Those three statements and actions are way beyond what a judge is supposed to do. You should, in some cases, you're supposed to make a ruling and keep your opinion to yourself. Shut your fucking mouth. But your opinion's got to be based in law, right? It's got to be based in law, fact, hard fact, law, case law. And I don't know where. I think Idaho is, believe it or not, violating the federal Constitution by demanding that the level of evidence Brian needs for an alternative perpetrator exceeds the evidence they're using to convict him of the crime. Right? He didn't want to be there early. I know. And Hitler was a judge that did case action lawsuits, with class action lawsuits. That's what Hitler did. I don't know why Hitler got this case, but he did. We are where we are. And a lot of the things he did were just outrageous. There was no evidence that car was involved. As a matter of fact, the problem with Hitler making that comment about the car is that the car that they claim was involved was excluded after it was searched. And I mean it was excluded, not, well, he could have cleaned it excluded. No. No, it was excluded because not only did they not find anything related to the crime, they clearly know that it wasn't cleaned prior when they found Brian's DNA in the car, blood. Right? It was excluded from involvement. Not, I mean, I don't care. And here's the other thing too. This kind of disturbs me, but why are people so convinced that when a refrigerator fails, all the DNA evidence is no good? Are you trying to suggest that dry blood can't be given? You can't scrape dry blood off a gun barrel and get it tested? Are you? I mean, I have this first time I brought this up, but I don't understand, right? So a refrigerator fails. How does that destroy your DNA evidence? I'm not clear on that. I mean, that DNA is 98.6 degrees when it's in the body, and when it's out of the body, it gets cooler, right? Not even reconstituted. I'm just suggesting that the fact that the refrigerator went bad shouldn't have been enough for Ann to stop arguing about evidence. It should have been in itself. But so what if the refrigerator failed? How is that going to destroy somebody's blood? Is there something inherent to a refrigerator or a freezer that once it fails, it attacks and destroys DNA evidence? Does the freezer have an automatic bleach fucking release system in it? I don't understand, right? I mean, there's so many things that people have come to accept, and people just don't really. Then they're like, these little issues are big issues when you sit down and think it through. Oh yeah, how convenient the refrigerator failed. Well, I don't know if that's convenient or inconvenient, but more inconvenient than anything else, and that whatever was stored in there shouldn't be useless. I mean, what if I chop off your hand and put it in the freezer and the freezer goes bad? Is your hand still not in the freezer? It's in probably worse shape than before it was frozen. But can't that hand be used to identify the owner of the hand? I'm just me. What do I know? I mean, it's a fuck. I owned a roofing company my whole life. What do I fucking know? The way Ann Taylor made him sound was like he couldn't even make decisions. I think Ann Taylor became a surrogate mother, and we'll see how she handles this fucking appeal, if she appeals at all. I think Ann Taylor is part of a systemic corrupt system, and that system is trained. You see it come out in not Turvey. You see it come through in Whitcomb. You see it come through in Cy-Ray. You see it come through in every policeman that they put on that stand in this case or in other cases. You see it with the policeman from the Karen Reed case. The system is systemically corrupt. Black Lives Matter, of all things, they were the only ones to make this argument, but they didn't really clarify themselves. They argued that it was systemically corrupt and targeting blacks. Okay, there's truth to that, but it's systemically corrupt, and how it investigates, and the prosecution getting involved and directing things is another area of systemic corruption, right? I don't understand either. How the fuck the knife sheath could have been on the floor or on the bed, but the killer not notice it? The killer that came in with a toolkit. Apparently, this guy, I don't know if you guys ever watched, probably some of you have, Gunsmoke or some of the old Western movies where the doc walks around with a little bag. Apparently, Koberger with his kill kit, a very complete kill kit that included instruments that could put 4-inch deep fucking holes in you. Okay? Double-edged holes in you, serrated edge holes in you, K-bar style like knife punctures in you, right? Smash bone, crush somebody's skull and face, and neatly put this back in his toolkit, but forget the fucking knife sheath that was sitting right there in front of him with the lights on. Yeah, that's absolutely normal as long as that's always normal, Mark. Listen, I think there was so little stuff on that sheath because that sheath itself belonged to one of the victims. You want to know my fair opinion? I said that in the very beginning. I said that a long time ago. I hate, and I don't hate to say it, I suspect it belonged to Kaylee. I suspect it belonged to Kaylee. I mean, think of the fact they claimed their home. They came home to their house and the door was open, and they went in the first floor bedroom and grabbed golf clubs, Ethan's golf clubs, and then all went and searched the house. I think that there was a concern specifically with Kaylee, and I honestly think, and nobody's ever asked Steve that. I that question should be asked to Steve. Did you ever give your daughter something to defend herself? A firearm, firearms training, edged weapon? No one's ever asked them that because they're a parent of a dead child. Oh, how dare you? Well, how dare you? Fuck you do. It's not how dare you. How dare you not ask? Kind of an idiot investigator are you? And then the DNA, I don't know how accurate that is or whatever, or like I said, I can't say Brian wasn't involved and Brian didn't do it. I can't sit there and make that argument. But you can decisively make the argument that this investigation was just fucked up. Yeah, Dylan wasn't taught any life. I was anyway. I've never given Dylan a free pass. I've been hesitant on Bethany. Bethany's actions say knowledge but not involvement. Dylan's statements suggest involvement, and not just knowledge but involvement. I think if there was any involvement by Bethany, it was begrudgingly, was under threat. You know. It's yeah. I mean, why didn't they test that blood? I mean, people argue Dylan was masculine without saying any words that'll get my account warned or something. I mean, we don't know. I don't know. I don't think so, to be honest with you. But who knows? Modern science is quite the thing, man. Quite the thing. 50 homicides a year in Idaho, very safe. The entire United States is very safe. People, I just want to point that out to people. For the first time in years, I heard that there was a house around the corner where a car was stolen. Well, I haven't really cared if my car was locked or not for, I can't even tell you, 20 years I've been here. And I still don't care. If they steal my car, they steal my car. I don't give a fuck. It's insured. I'd rather they steal it than vandalize it. Steal it and smash it up and total it. Do what you got to do so I can get a new car. I don't have a problem with that. Just be careful backing it out. You don't hit my house or something. That'd really fucking piss me off. Yeah, and I want to go back to it. Dago stream with a guy that's he claims he believes Brian did it, and I think you could believe Brian did it, but I think that the means used to put him behind bars and the lies, there's no question there were lies in the probable cause affidavit. They then used those lies to get the warrants to continue to get his DNA swab, to get into his apartment, to get into his car, to get into his parents' house, to get into his place of work. All of those additional warrants were based on a lie that started them off with the probable cause affidavit, the social media, the phone, all of that. All of those warrants are unlawfully obtained because the original arrest warrant was false. They could not identify Koberger's involvement in that crime other than transfer DNA on a knife sheath. And regardless of that, and I've said it 100 times, that in and of itself isn't proof of anybody's involvement in the crime. Specifically in this case, in any case, because it's transfer DNA. And their attempt to put Brian in that crime scene failed. Bill Thompson admitted it. It failed, utterly failed in his statements to the court. They write a warrant in such a way to implicate Brian with stalking. There's absolutely no stalking involved. Right? No, and it's not because I'm saying it, it's because the prosecution stated that. I think Cy Ray is going out on a limb saying he went north. And I'd like somebody, and I've asked Twiz, somebody to draw in fucking common sense the two routes that could be taken. One is Route 270, where they identified the travel of the suspect vehicle 1, which was not Brian Koberger. And according to Cy Ray, Brian Koberger went north and through some back roads, okay, to get to where he was going. And I'm going to tell you something, even with Cy Ray's argument about behavioral, if you're someone that really likes watching the sky and you know that there's back roads that aren't lit, yeah, I mean, what the fuck, man? I got a really fast car. Do I drive around? Do I drive through and around areas that I know other fast cars gather for street racing? Yeah. Yeah. Is that enough to put me and fucking charge me with street racing? Let's just reduce this to the simple, folks. Yeah. You could place me and my phone around the areas where all those street racers are. Abso-fucking-lutely. Doesn't mean I street raced. And even if I admit openly, yeah, I've street raced. Where? Well, I don't know. I don't know. It still has to be substantiated. In other words, you need some way to substantiate that I was on this road at this time, street racing. And you need to identify myself, my vehicle. My vehicle is very unique. It wouldn't be that hard. But if it happened to be a souped up Elantra, God forbid, right? I don't know. But I think what you're seeing when you look at the case and understand not the significance of the DNA, okay? You look at what would make it eternally significant. And all it would make that, the significance of that can only be placing the suspect at the scene of the crime. And then at the time of the murders. That's why they were so hell-bent on 4 o'clock forward. Even though they knew, and this is another thing, they knew that the car that they argued didn't show up until 4:07 and something seconds. So that's misrepresentation between 4 a.m. and 4:20 a.m. Well, no. What car showed up at 4 a.m.? Brent's parents, I don't know. We have less than 50 homicides a year. Yeah, some inner cities, not all of them. A lot of these inner cities, just so you know, crime is down. Even murders in your inner cities are way down because of the activities of this administration's policy on not just crime, but on rounding up people who cross the border illegally and deporting them. Their presence in many of these areas, especially blue states where they have these sanctuary cities, crime is way down across the country. My last understanding was the crime rate is equivalent now to 1900, not 1924, or not 2024, not 2016, not 1975, 1900, the lowest crime rate in 125 years. That's staggering. But don't listen to the TV and hear that, because it's never going to tell you that. And if it does tell you that, it's between two commercial breaks that, will drown out what you just heard anyway. Fucking commercials, man. I can't stand it. The route BK took, Becky True, a whole generation of people that need safe spaces and trigger warnings. I don't know where Brent parents live. Yeah. Yeah, I've always wanted to be. Look, I went by a cop parked on the side of the road, writing a ticket, and I went by him at 135 miles an hour climbing. And that cop with that person in their back seat came out after me. Okay. Now I was on a highway. I boogied to an exit that I knew had a long off ramp to give me time to slow this car down. And then I made a left and I punched it again, ran it well up over 100 miles an hour. Okay. Came upon the next intersection, which was crossing a 4-lane road. No, it was a regular sheriff in my area. No, it was a town policeman. Anyways, the moral, here's the short of it. By the time the police actually found me, my music, I don't have music, I don't think, that I'm aware. But anyway, by the time I was in a neighborhood miles and miles and miles away from the alleged point of speeding originated, and I was parked smoking some Marlboro menthols that I smoked back in the day because my car had overheated. And a cop pulled up behind me, draw his gun and put it to my fucking temple. Yeah. Arrested me, charged me with this fucking speeding, da-da-da-da-da. But when it went to trial, no, I've got the, back then it was a Thunderbird. But anyway, when it went to trial for the traffic court, the case was ultimately dismissed for specific reasons. This may be why. Now, I'm glad I brought this up. This is why I have a problem with the Koberger case, because my own life experienced this. When I went by that policeman at 135 miles an hour, all he saw was a black sedan. He didn't get the year, make, model, no identity of the driver, whether I be white, black, or Hispanic. Blew by him. Poof. Now, when I was sitting many, many miles away, 20, 30 minutes later, okay, and a cop pulled up behind my black car that had overheated and put a gun to my temple. At that point in time, they had no probable cause to even arrest me or charge me with speeding. The reason is obvious, just like in the Koberger case. There was nothing identifiable in my car on the call between the cop and dispatch. Nothing. Black two-door sedan. Simply the fact that I owned a black two-door sedan that was overheating and pulled over in a neighborhood, okay, was not sufficient to charge me with the fucking traffic violations. And the case had to be dismissed. The district attorney almost started jumping up and down and screaming, furious beyond comprehension. But that's how it works. And this is now I'm glad this topic came up, because now, do you understand? I have the direct experience of a vehicle problem with the police. I'll tell you what I ended up doing after that. This is when I finally started pulling police over in that black vehicle. Not pulling them over, but if they were speeding, lagging behind them long enough, when they pulled over or stopped or did whatever to approach them, get their badge number, the car number, and the time of day, and go back to their barracks and turn them into their dispatcher or whoever was on duty, the lieutenant, the sergeant, the shift commander. I did that several times. And that black two-door sedan in that same town where you tried sticking it up my ass on a case that you couldn't prove other than to say a black two-door sedan. And you know what? I'm fucking laughing to myself over here. That's exactly why I have a problem with the Koberger case. Never dawned on me. I think I've told this story before. But this is what I mean by evidence matters. It literally matters. There had to have been a black two-door sedan. Okay. What make, model? No idea. Color of the driver? No idea. Any identifying marks? Couldn't see, going too fast. Then why did you stop? Why did you arrest this guy? He's in a black two-door sedan that was overheating. And what was he doing when you approached? He was smoking a cigarette. What did he say? He said, my car broke down. I live around the corner. Oh, well, so why'd you arrest him? Because he owned a black two-door sedan. And he was, look, that's not enough, but that's what they did. Same thing in the Koberger case, folks. Yeah. No, I drive a 652 horsepower 1980 Chevy Corvette that's been lightened to under 3,000 pounds. I don't know about any of that, Mark, buddy. 4chan has got all the kinds of different. There's a billion things to suggest why this happened. I think people are missing key information in the autopsies. I think the autopsies tells more of a story than anybody's paying attention to. I think the multitude of weapons, the multitude of injuries, and most importantly, to some extent, the shallow injuries, 1/8 of an inch, those tell a story. Yeah. See there, hombre? I don't know who. I don't know if I've seen you in here before. You're not. Who's that other guy, hombre? What's his name there? I forget his name. People. He solves the case every week or so. There's too much damning evidence on this case to point to different perpetrators, and he should have gone to trial. But let's just say this, Cora. If all the motions that should have excluded information being brought in front of a jury are denied, if your key witness is called a conspiracy theorist, right? And your judge is telling you that these people that you suggest are alternative perpetrators don't own a white car, then you're kind of fucked. And then a week before, days before your plea deal, a whole new document dump hits your fucking defense team. See, this also needs to be, if Americans want to see the justice system doing fucking right and wrong, that's wrong. They didn't just find that evidence 2 days before they dropped it. The house was gone. The crime scene was gone. The interviews were over. The videos, the 61 terabytes of data that they claimed they had, or whatever the fuck it was in their possession. They had no business that close to a trial date dumping that discovery. That's trial by ambush. The judge shouldn't even, and then the judge being involved is what I understand, and sorting out this plea deal, that shouldn't have been allowed either. We need to see that dump of evidence. Apparently, part of that dump was the chain of custody on the knife sheath. But she was denied all of these things. So if you're the guy sitting in the cage, you need to try to step into Brian's shoes. What do you do? It's kind of like, I never boxed professionally. I boxed curiously. How about that? But I boxed several times. And it's not in your hands. Sometimes you win the fight, but you lose the fight on the judge's scorecards. What do? You can't change that. It is what it is, right? If you're innocent, you fight. I agree with that. However, sometimes, and we'll see what carries on forward with the legal situation. Sometimes you have to take a punch to fight back. Sometimes you have to absorb the punishment before you can fight back. And let's hope that that's the case here. Let me just say, more importantly, if you're guilty, in a case like this, if you're guilty, you fight to the fucking last minute. I really don't understand Hitler really made the turning point. In hindsight, we should have stayed with Judge. She shouldn't have done what she did. She should have waited until Judge ruled on all the motions and a trial date was set. And the last thing she should have done is argued for a change of venue. Not when she did. That was so out of order, so like out of the fucking left field that she asked for a change of venue that I think that was a huge mistake on behalf of Ann Taylor. I think Judge showed in his remarks and made a point a few times that has to be proven. He's innocent till proven guilty. And that's the proper way for a judge to sit on a bench. Pardon me. And that doesn't appear to have happened here. Let's see here. I'll let me see here. I'm gonna put, hang on, stupid stream here. In case anybody wants to come up and say their piece, which nobody does, which I find a bit shocking. People don't come up into my stream with my stream. They don't want to be my sidekick. And I don't know why, but it's fine. I've been looking for Twiz. I haven't seen Twiz. I tried getting hold of him on Discord. I tried getting Dago to drag me up on a show to test this microphone. I didn't. That didn't happen. That's why I started the stream. You know, it is what it is. I know he had a stream there, but it'd have been nice if I could have just came up and said, "Hey, hello, how's my mic? Oh, great, man, thank you," and I would have just dropped out. But that here we are. Here we are. Can opposites both be true? And I think that in some cases that is accurate. Yes. Could that be Brian Koberger's car and him not be part of the crime? Sure. Well, where's Miss Potts? How do I invite her? I don't even know how to get in touch with her. I mean, if someone has a way to contact Miss Potts, drag her ass in here. Yeah, I mean, early on, you know, what is it? This will be 4 years on November 13th that the crime happened. And in December 29th or something, it'll be 4 years since they arrested Koberger. Yeah, I'd be happy to have Miss Potts come up here. She's the one that mentioned the dog shaking off, and that's why a lot of that blood splatter on the second level ended up in spots that just doesn't seem reasonable. But under the auspices of a dog shaking, it may in fact be reasonable. Yeah, Miss Potts and I haven't really done a show. We've been on panel before together. We've been on panel together before. And I think her and I think in a kind of linear way. And she's very clever in some of the observations she makes. So I do like some of the things that she's observed and some of her explanations of what we're looking at. Yeah, I think yeah, she's got a very, very good mind. So does, what's her other name there? That Kathy from the Indie Zone as well. Yeah, there's a trillion. But here's the real question is, and the only thing that really should matter, and it's the only thing I've tried to pay attention to through the whole case, are the actions of the state of Idaho and the other agencies involved consistent with proper procedures on an evidentiary collection and on an investigative level in securing their arrest and warrants that were leveled against Brian Koberger. And in that perspective, from that point of view, there's a strong argument to say no, that what they did was wrong. They made mistakes. They never corrected them, as we found out that you can go back and correct a warning. Yeah, Lucy's very clever too. She usually comes into my stream. But you know, I did this. I don't, like I said, I don't do these all the time anymore. And I probably won't do them all the time unless there's an appeal. And then I'll start, you know, trying to drag people in or join their streams. And Lucy used to drive me nuts with those streams with the potato. Jesus Christ. But you know, they were good. They were informative, but always with a fucking potato. And I get it's Idaho. I get it. Not that I don't get it, but I'd have rather. And then she has, yeah. She had some unique videos she put out there. Let's just say, leave it at that. The Kathy, too, there with the Indie Zone. She sounds like AI. 2025. 2022. November 13th, 2022. At 0744 hours. Kathy sounds like AI to me. I don't think she's real. I just don't. I was on a stream with her the other day and I pointed that out. She's like, so, am I making fun of her? Kind of, not really. But you all know who I'm talking about when I say that. 2022. And I used to call her AI. She was, I forget what stream it was. Oh, she was reading stuff on her streams and it was live. And I was like, welcome to the stream with an AI, something like that. She knows I say that about her. I don't mean any harm. But it is kind of funny. She should be the voice for an AI, or for somebody's things that you like the Alexa when you ask it a question. And I'm on a side note, that's got to be about the stupidest fucking thing I've ever owned in my life, that Alexa. What an annoying fucking claptrap that is. It's so annoying that every day at 12 noon, okay, every day at 12 noon, I've programmed it to remind me to scratch my balls. So every day at noon, I love it when my windows are open and the neighbors are around somewhere. An alarm rings. It says, your reminder to scratch your balls. This is your reminder to scratch your balls. Fucking thing. I like asking it something. I don't know how to help you with that. I don't know how to help you with that. Can you ask that a question again? I don't know how to help you with that. Then why the fuck can you be talked to if questions can be asked to you and you don't have any answers? But start asking it some left wing stuff and it has all the answers. It's a fucking and it broke down a week or two ago. It literally broke down. You would ask it something like I'd ask it, what time is it? And the lights would come on and spin and spin and spin and spin. And by the time it answered what time it was 10 minutes later than when I asked it, 15 minutes later, 5 minutes. It was always way later. The light would spin and stop and it would flash and it would spin and it would go slow. It was like, good God. Yeah, I don't know. I asked earlier, but I thought for sure that there was a picture of a bathtub where what appeared to be a footprint was in the tub. A shoed footprint was in the downstairs bathtub with something else, some other debris in there. Does anybody else remember seeing that? That's very disturbing when these guys argue there was no cleanup. Well, okay. Then I guess these women jump in their tub with their shoes on. It'll be 5 years on Monday since Michael Vaughn was taken in Fruitland, Idaho. I don't even know what that means. What is that? Who is he? Who's Michael Vaughn? What did he do? What was he accused of? Was he that doctor? What was he? What do you call those guys that fuck with your back? Yeah, these. I'm so disappointed in all this stuff that people claim is AI. I'm just so disappointed in people thinking that's artificially intelligent. It just isn't. It isn't, and it can't be. It won't be. That's like saying that we could successfully perform brain transplants, on the go. That's we're there. And we've had the capacity to map the nervous system in such a way that we could just take your brain out and put it in another body, you'd be fine. Incredible. I mean, there's some things we're capable of doing, but I don't think that would be a routine procedure anytime soon. And the problem with what people are interpreting as AI is it doesn't think, right? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, that's terrible, man. 5 years old. Didn't even live. Didn't even live. AI is an advanced audio search engine. I was back in the day. I don't know how many people even. Some of you might be young. Some of you, who knows? But there was a time not long ago where getting a computer to recognize voice was considered impossible. There were all kinds of software programs. Windows dabbled in it with their Explorer, where you could tell it to do simple tasks like open my email, open Internet Explorer, and it was so hit. One of them was speech to something, voice to speech. I forget the Dragonfire something. I forget the name of the company that made it. Where you could you could open up a Word document and talk to the microphone, and the computer was supposed to then take your words and convert it to a text on a Microsoft document, a Word document, or whatever the fuck. Talk about getting shit wrong. That was the worst thing ever. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like out of nowhere, they cracked voice recognition. They cracked not just recognition, but voice communication with the machine. And that's why people think it's intelligent, and it just isn't. Your voice and your computer interprets your voice like it interprets a keyboard fucking stroke. Same thing. Obviously, much more faster to talk. Different syllables, different accents. There's more to it. It's a complicated piece of software, but an algorithm, as they now call it. But it's not the computer that's smart. It's the algorithm that allows it to interpret your voice into Word, into type, into wherever you want it to, right? So when you ask these stupid machines a question, it's just drawing on the same information you would get from an internet browser if you typed it in. So I don't know. I think it's a danger to humanity to call that thing intelligent. A 5-year-old boy is more intelligent than today's artificial intelligence. Because having access to information, right? Having access to information isn't knowledge. Copying the guy on a test and getting 100% on your test isn't a display of your knowledge, right? That isn't your knowledge. It was his knowledge, and his knowledge was put on a piece of paper that you read and wrote on your paper. That's what the computers do. Yeah. And it may be able to get to a point where algorithms can be written that it may start doing what appears to be intelligent things, but I suspect not for quite some time, if at all. People think quantum computers are going to be quantum computers are not really. They handle math problems, but let me ask you, everybody raise their hand. How many of you are concerned that current computer capacity and its ability to solve a math problem that could take the current capacity available to humanity 1,000,000 years to solve can be solved in 8 minutes by a fucking quantum computer? I don't know. Something that needs 1,000,000 years to solve might just fucking be something we shouldn't even be trying to solve at this point. What's that relative to? What's the relation to have that kind of a computing speed, to solve a math problem? Maybe your math problem is the fucking problem, right? I don't know. I mean, it does have the robust capacity to do math. There's no doubt about it. But will it be intelligent? I doubt it. Intelligence is a unique thing. And everything these computers today that they do are relying on data that you and I inputted into it. The best example of that is a self-driving car. They only self-drive because of the input that we've put into the system. They know what a fire hydrant is and a bicycle is, not because they know intimately what that is. Right? It's a fire hydrant. The computer doesn't think, what does that mean? It just is. It is a fire hydrant. It's shaped this way. It's colored these different ways. That's how it works. You say fire hydrant, you and I understand what a fire hydrant is and what they're for. Now, a computer can get that information, but it doesn't know it. It moves on to the next problem. You see what I mean? So there's no intelligence there where, you see a fire hydrant and the first thing that comes to mind is a fire, or kids opening one up, or a fire department opening one up on a hot day for kids to play in the water stream. I mean, we look at a fire hydrant, we have an understanding of it, why it's there, what it does, what we can do with it. Computer can gather that information, but it doesn't know it. So that's what I mean by intelligence. It doesn't have that capacity. All right, stop wandering out of that topic. Anyway, for those of you that have listened to this stream, one, this microphone works good or better, and two, it was bullshit. It's junk, it's garbage, and your $7.99 was wasted. One, it was good. Two, you wasted $7.99. What say you in the audience of roughly 30 people or so? It was a good $7.99, right? Yeah, I get this one. Your voice is clear as a bell. Look, the other one was, I'm telling you, that girl at Bronx Tales has the same microphone as me. It's a beautiful stand. It's a big microphone. It's got a screen in front of it to stop your spittle from collecting on the microphone. It's all fancy looking. Piece of shit. It's just a piece of shit. This one's $7.99. And it's made by, I don't even know. Some name I can't even pronounce. Probably made in some fucking sweatshop in China or Cambodia or some fucked up place around the world. And it's clear as a bell. Yeah. See that? All right. Well, folks, thanks for coming in. Thanks for letting me test my microphone and sharing some of my crazy. More crazy I share, the more you end up getting, but the less I have to deal with. So until next time, it's 10:30 in the evening on Saturday on the East Coast, and I'm going to call it a night. July 25th. We got a week left, and July will be no more. How sad is that? So thanks for coming in, folks. The bad was from Timo. $7.99. I don't know what you got. You could only buy a couple of candy bars for that. But apparently you could buy a microphone that transmits your voice across God knows how many different computers and how many different locations on the planet. Clearly. A couple of bars of candy or a microphone. There you go. But thanks for coming in. Thanks for helping me with this microphone issue. That is an issue no more. Be good, everyone. We'll see you soon.